I never thought one decision on a warm summer afternoon would unravel so much of my marriage, my dignity, and my sense of who I was. Looking back now, I can see all the signs that things in my home were not as steady as I pretended they were. But at the time, I thought I was simply doing something harmless, something even kind-hearted. I had no idea how quickly it would spiral into something much darker, something that would tear at the fragile threads of trust between me and my husband, Matthew. We lived on the outskirts of Kentucky, in a quiet town where family traditions mattered more than anything else. Matthew grew up on a ranch. His father and grandfather before him had been horse breeders, and so horses were practically in his blood. When we got married, it was understood that we would keep the family horse, not just as a pet, but as a symbol of his lineage and pride. The horse's name was Daisy, a beautiful chestnut mare with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of patience. To Matthew, Daisy was not just an animal. She was history, loyalty, and honor tied into one living being. I admired that at first. I thought it was sweet that he valued something with such depth. But over time, Daisy became almost like a rival to me. It wasn't that Matthew loved her more than me, but he certainly gave her more of his time, more of his attention, and more of his care. Our evenings were not filled with movies or walks, but with Matthew out in the barn, brushing Daisy's coat or polishing her saddle. Sometimes, I would stand at the window of our house and watch him, his strong hands moving over Daisy's back with care, his voice low as he whispered to her as if she understood. He rarely spoke to me in that tone anymore. The neglect I felt was not intentional, but it was real. And into that loneliness crept the shadow of temptation. One day, Matthew's childhood friend, Ryan, stopped by to help with the fencing on the property. Ryan was different from my husband, less rigid, more playful, and quick with a smile that made me feel like I was being noticed again. He was the kind of man who leaned against the fence and laughed with his whole chest, while Matthew was all about rules and order. I didn't go looking for anything with Ryan, but when you're starved of attention, the smallest kindness can feel like a feast. The afternoon it all began, Matthew had gone into town for supplies. Ryan stayed behind to finish some repairs. Daisy was restless in the barn, stomping her hooves, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I decided to take her out into the field myself. Normally, I left all horse matters to Matthew, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could handle it, that I wasn't just some outsider in my own family's traditions. I saddled Daisy clumsily, though I had seen Matthew do it countless times. Ryan came over, smiling, and offered to help. "You sure you got this?" He teased gently, his hands brushing mine as he adjusted the straps. My heart raced, not because of Daisy, but because of him. We led Daisy out to the pasture, and Ryan insisted I try riding her. At first, I resisted, but he encouraged me until I climbed up. Daisy was gentle, but nervous under my inexperienced handling. I laughed nervously, and Ryan steadied the reins with me, his hand covering mine. The moment was innocent in appearance, but inside me, everything shifted. His touch was like a spark to a pile of dry leaves. When Matthew returned, he saw me atop Daisy with Ryan standing close, holding the bridle. His eyes darkened immediately. I could tell by the way his jaw clenched that he didn't see a wife trying to bond with their family horse. He saw betrayal. That night, he was furious. "What were you doing out there?" he demanded, pacing the kitchen while I sat silently. "You know Daisy isn't for you to ride. She's delicate. She's trained for me. And with Ryan? What were you thinking, letting him put his hands on her on you?" I tried to explain, but the truth was, I didn't have a good reason. I had been careless with boundaries. I had let myself lean into the kind of attention I craved. And though nothing physical had happened, Matthew's mind was already filled with suspicion. The weeks that followed were tense. Matthew stopped looking at me with warmth. Every time Ryan's name came up in conversation, he hardened. Daisy became a symbol of my mistake. Every time I saw her in the field, I thought of Ryan's hand over mine, his laugh in my ear. Loneliness can twist into something reckless. And my loneliness, paired with Matthew's distance, made me reach out to Ryan again. It started with casual conversations, then with confessions about how unhappy I felt. Ryan listened, his eyes full of understanding, and soon, he was the one I looked for when Matthew was too busy. The line between friendship and infidelity blurred slowly, almost invisibly. And it all stemmed from that single day in the pasture, that single moment with Daisy that Matthew could never forgive. One evening, Matthew came home earlier than expected. He found me on the porch, sitting too close to Ryan, our laughter too intimate, our eyes holding too much unsaid.
He didn't yell this time.
He didn't rage like before. He just looked at me with a devastation so heavy that I felt crushed under it. "What did you do?" he asked quietly, almost like he already knew the answer. I tried to deny, to downplay, to insist that nothing had gone too far. But in marriages, sometimes the smallest betrayals feel larger than life. And for Matthew, the fact that I had let someone else step into the sacred space of trust between us was enough to break something that couldn't easily be mended. Daisy, once a symbol of family pride, became the mirror of our broken marriage. Matthew stopped taking her out as often. The barn that was once filled with his laughter and soft whispers grew silent. And I knew it was because every time he looked at Daisy, he was reminded of me, reminded of what I had done. Infidelity doesn't always mean a physical act. Sometimes, it's the sharing of glances, the laughter meant for your spouse, the intimacy of trust given to someone else. That was my crime. And though I didn't fully cross every line, I had crossed enough. Matthew and I tried counseling. We tried to stitch together the threads of what we had torn apart. But he could never unsee that day, me on Daisy with Ryan at my side, his hand over mine. To him, that was the moment I betrayed him. Years later, when I look back, I realize it wasn't about the horse at all. It was about the loneliness I didn't speak of, the attention I craved, and the choices I made instead of confronting the truth with my husband. Daisy is long gone now, but the memory of what happened in that field has stayed, shaping the way I see love, trust, and betrayal forever. Because sometimes, it only takes one careless afternoon to change the course of a marriage. And sometimes, what seems like nothing to one person is everything to another.